let's talk to Alex and get into some sort of VR esports stuff. Because this is super interesting, and I don't think any of us are particularly that involved with VR esports or track it regularly enough to really understand what's going on in that sort of side of the VR marketplace. So it'd be interesting to get this kind of insight from Alex directly. But
got
maybe
an
you can.
T-shirt.
Yeah, well, that makes you a pro straight away, right? So maybe Alex, you can start about like before you got involved with like VR Master League. Like, how did you get involved in VR in general? Like, what was your sort of first foray into VR?
I mean, it started at the launch. I mean, I guess we had so much Oculus talk, right? But it started with the HTC Vive. You know, that's when I initially got in. Right at the beginning of that, I took the leap of faith. You know, I had heard VR. I had no idea what it was. I had not seen any videos. I wanted it. I bought the device, and you know, I remember putting that on and having, you know, tears of amazing. I knew it was the next thing. You know, it's like to see a cube rendered in front. It's so funny to think like I was amazed by floating controllers in a cube that was floating in front of me. But yeah, that's where it kind of all started. And then, I mean, one of my first games was Onward. Like that was the first thing I played. It came out, and it was one of the first games that came out for the Vive. It's a very long-standing shooter, and I played it into the ground. You know, I started to do a little streaming. That's how I met Zim on twitch.tv. You know, we'd encounter each other every now and again. And I just stuck with Onward. Put hours and hours and hours into that, and eventually started to expand into other stuff. You know, it took me a while before I got into Echo. That's really one of the more recent loves of mine in terms of the esports scene. But I mean, it all started with the Vive and with Onward. And from there, I just kind of, you know, now I have, it's, you know, 5 headsets later.
Right. So like prior to getting into VR, had you like dabbled in Twitch streaming or like any online content prior to that?
No, not really. And so I guess I chose the hardest thing to do as my first step. You know?
Yeah, I was exactly the same. Yeah, I'd never done anything like this before prior to VR. You know, it was my first foray into online content.
No.
I guess, you know, when you look at Twitch and you look at streaming, you're trying to find what makes you unique or how can you get an edge to sort of grow. And I saw VR as that initial sort of, wow, this is unique. Like if I'm doing this is definitely going to catch an eye or two and people will come back. And so that was sort of the initial drive for me to start doing content. And at that point, right, also, you've already built a whole, especially for the Vive, I've built a master, you know, I went and rebuilt a computer. I've got another one lying around. Turn that one into a stream PC, then go get a capture card. Next thing you know, you're putting green screens on your wall and turning your living room into a studio. And you know, it spirals so fast downhill. But yeah, I mean, it just I think that's what really started it. It was the fact that I had to get a powerful system to run VR, and then I was like, well, shoot, I got this thing. I might as well stream on it too because this thing's a powerhouse. Yeah. And so yeah, I mean. I had done some other stuff before. I'd tried Ark, you know, I'd tried streaming Ark and some other shooters and stuff. But yeah, I mean, VR was really where I started to get deep into the Twitch. And you know, I tried to do the VR only thing where I was only playing VR games. I skipped so many great 2D titles that I went and revisited years later, like God of War and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it consumed me entirely.
That's awesome. And it's amazing to think that, you know, what, 4 years later, we're now playing Onward on a completely standalone headset. And like you say, that in terms of graphics, although it's not exactly like the PC version, it's getting very close.
Yeah.
It's, you know, and I think it's for guys like me that there are a lot of us in the Onward community too, but it's for guys like us that have experienced Onward when it came out on the Vive, you know, day one, where it's like, it's really an impact where you're just like, how is this possible? You know, like this game was barely running on my PC when I bought it, you know, and now it's been optimized to a point where it's a smooth, fun experience on a mobile device. There's 10 people in my lobby at one time. We can interact with each other. It takes time because I'm so ingrained to like PC graphics. It looks so good. The game looks so nice. And then you go into Quest and it's certainly a change, but it's just, you know, it's so easy to forget that sometimes that it's just on a mobile platform and you can take it anywhere.
Yeah, and it's funny because at the beginning of the show you said, oh, you know, you've been reaching for your Quest 2 more than your Index, and I've certainly felt the same way. You know, just recently, you know, I don't know what it is because
it's a
like
barrier
you know,
to entry, right?
Yeah.
To a certain degree, yeah, you know, and like for Squadrons, we played online multiplayer, with Zim and a few other VR content creators a couple of weeks back. And I did use the index for that, but it was purely because of a battery concern that I was going to run out of battery when we were playing together, streaming wirelessly. But now I've got like the battery strap ordered, it is coming, although it is delayed because I think there's a shortage of them. That won't be a problem necessarily in the future. And I think the Quest 2 will probably be my go-to headset for everything. But how did that sort of transition from then sort of Twitch streamer that was like really in love with Onward? How did that sort of transition into getting involved with the VR Master League, and how did that all come about?
It is all tied together. I started the Twitch streaming, and Onward was really the passion. And it was, I played in the first iterations of the VR Master League, when we were initially just putting it together as something that we wanted to. It came together because as a community, we wanted to play each other competitively. I wanted to play with the same 5 and sort of hone in strats and then play against somebody else that had done the same thing. And so it was just for us, like we made the VRML for the Onward folks because we just wanted to play some good Onward. We just wanted to play some competitive Onward. And more people started to stream. They started to stream their perspectives of playing games. And so I started to get more and more FPS views available that I can watch this person play against this person. I would then take those FPS views, crop them into a, corner, put me in the bottom right, and try and cast over those FPS views before we had spectate or anything, and that's where it really originated from, was me just pulling in these first person views from players and casting over them. And I remember comments like, why are you on the screen? No one wants to see you behind a desk. You should get out, And I stuck to the guy. I was like, look, I'm going to do what I want to do. This is my show. It's on my channel. I'm going to be featured on it, But
yeah,
I stuck to that system. And then finally we got spectate. And pretty much as soon as spectate was introduced, I think around season 2, maybe late season 1, that was when it was like, oh, there's more we can do now. I can actually go in and cast this. More people recognizing, hey, I can go in and spectate games and cast them. And so once I started to do that, then the interest from other people started to spark up, and in the early days, admittedly, I wasn't as fundamental in its growth. It was really just the organic community growing it. People saying, hey, I want to stream, and Dak and the leader of the VRML going, sure, yeah, hey, here's the keys to the castle, go ahead, stream on our channel. We just want games to be covered. And it grew over the course of 4 years into something that is now like, we're quite a force. We have 15 casters for Onward. I think we're pushing over 15 for Echo Arena. We're trying to stand up the Pavlov casting team now because they have gotten spectate, into a more passable state. And so it really has grown into something that is in an organization, and it's taken us, it's been a long time to get it to where it is, but it's been a while. It's been fun. That's the origin story, is that I started streaming FPS views, and from there it just kind of slowly grew. I'd say around season 5 was when we really started to get things together.
And it's awesome that you've all come together, because like I take it you were playing against like random teams and you were just destroying them and the competition just wasn't there. Is that right?
Yeah, if you put things are different now, but if you put anyone that plays in the league into a pub lobby, they're going to have a good time. You know what I mean? Those league players, they're very honed in and skillful in the game. And you're basically just, it came to the point where, I'm sprinting at the enemy, trying to murder all 5 of them before they can even get anywhere, and at that point you're like, I'm kind of ruining the experience for these people. I'm just kind of coming up onto them and murdering them before anything happens. They have no idea what's happening. They quit the lobby.
It's like when we play with Viper, that's what happens. But maybe you can explain, like, on a level, like how different are like pro players compared to like general players. Like, what is it that makes them so much better? Is it like reaction times? Is it like, what is it that makes them better?
Yeah, there's a lot that I can unpack with just that question. I think at the VRML there's a very wide range. Admittedly, the way that it's structured is it's all based off of a MMR system. So if you win a game, you gain MMR. If you lose a game, you lose MMR. Right. And so if you are a new team, you play 3 placement matches against low, bronze level teams, and if you do well, you play against us. Kind of like if you're playing League of Legends placements, you get matched accordingly. And then at the end of that, you get assigned a MMR, and so then you're getting paired with teams that are supposed to be similar skill rank to you. So there's actually, from top to bottom, we have teams that put in 5 hours of practice a day. They're on free roam. They are killing. They're putting in scrims every day. They're organizing with other teams to play against. They're honing in their strategies. They're going into a scrimmage is it's a scrimmage
for the non-pro player.
Yeah, thanks. It's basically like a match between two teams. Yeah, a casual match between two teams. So you still get the practice in. You still get the ability to play it competitively, kind of like old school VRML. Just like it's like the origins. That's kind of why we did it. But at the same time, you don't have the pressure of, if we lose, we're going to go down in rank. And so it's a little less intense, and you can kind of focus more on, let's try a new strategy here. Let's try moving here differently. Let's try placing a smoke in this position versus that. Gives you a little bit of room to practice. But, from top to bottom, there's a wide skill range. So I would say, at the top, again, guys that, like myself, have put over 1,200 hours into the game. Wow. If you are a new player, there's no chance you're competing against them. And that's a fact. You can't, and I'm not gonna be light around the subject. That's just how it is. At the same time, at the bottom of our pool, down at the bronze, it's filled, and I tell you, filled with new Quest players. There is a ton of people that have come into this game and really enjoyed it out the gate. They see, there's a competitive scene, there's prizing to it, and they sign up and they get matched. And so there is a very wide range from top to bottom of skill base in the VRML and all of the leagues, and that's one of the things I like the most about it.
Yeah, that's good.
Is that if you, no matter what skill level you're at, you can get in. Obviously, some people in Echo recommend getting up to at least level 30 or 40 before you start to try and play the game competitively, because you have to get the fundamentals down. I recommend the same with Onward. You put in your time to get the fundamentals before you try and get to that next level. But I mean, that's what all these guys are doing, and it's there's quite a big skill gap, admittedly, but it's not to deter anyone from playing and having a good time in the league.
And do you think as well, like, when we talked about VR esports in the early days, it was all about like, like VR esports players are going to be like proper athletes, because it's so physical. There's so much physicality to playing like a VR game. Do you see that as well in like these games like Onward and like Lone Echo? Is there a big physicality element to it?
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at Lone Echo Echo Arena is really the one that's the most physical esport. You are jumping, there's a lot of arm movement. The throwing is very physical. It's wild to watch, and I still definitely stand by the fact that these esports players have to be fit. And I think one thing we're seeing too, obviously with the Quest, is a lot of a younger audience, a lot more people that are 13, 14, 15 that are starting to play in the league. And that's going to be a factor. These kids are quick. They have, as an example off the top of my head, if you were to get shot and you instantly laid on your floor in Onward, you could fake a death that way. You could pretend that you have been shot and someone stops shooting at you. I'm at almost 30. I'm not going to go prone I'm not going to dive onto my floor to avoid a shot.
So high as well, like.
It's true. I'm high up there. I got to go all the way down. And so, there's going to be inherent advantages to a younger audience, to a younger player base as well, just because of the physicality of it all. So, we're starting to see it a little bit in Onward because we've been around the longest with that. But also Echo, you're seeing the young players really play it well. They are very good at this game, and so, it's exciting.
Do you see more and more genres becoming an esport? Because in the mainstream scene, there are so many different ways of you have esports where people play Street Fighter against each other. And then you have people who play Rocket League. And then you have, there's so much different. Well, in the VR scene, it's now shooters, and of course you have Echo that is like, is it like disc golf basically, or what is it?
Yes, that's a good. I'm glad you bring that up, because it is something that the VRML has been looking to expand themselves into as well. But you've seen it already with other organizations. They put on events that have been with Pro Putt, they've been with Synth Riders, they've been with Beat Saber, they've done stuff with Walking Dead. You can do leaderboard based esports. You know, it's, for me, I come from playing collegiate baseball, so I have the like very deep competitive nature just like burned into me, you know, and so I see games and I'm like, okay, you got to play this at a very competitive level. It's got to be team, it's got to be visceral, you know, you have to be communicating and have that sort of, you know, level of communication. But you don't, you know, there are other spaces to explore, absolutely. You know, you've seen pistol whip tournaments go on, you know, there are other avenues that are untapped markets, you know, in the VR esports space, in my opinion. You know, these companies that could be hosting events or, you know, reaching out to the VRML to host their events, you know, we could put on great shows for a couple of these games that could have, you know, these leaderboard competitions.
But do you think that because I sometimes see developers trying to make their games in like an esport by throwing a lot of money at it, but in the end it's the community, right, who picks what game becomes an esport. I mean, Onward has been chosen by the community. It's not that Dante was like, hey, let's put a prize here because I want my game to be an esport. It's like natural growth that you talk about, I think.
Yep, and I think the thing that we try and do at the VRML is really suss out which ones are going to have that community. You know, we try and find, okay, what new games are going to have the community that we can stand up a nice competitive esports scene around, because it's all community run. You know, I don't run the Echo Arena casting scene. That's done by Palador. He is deeply infused in that community. You know, that entire Echo Arena mod team is players and people that are deeply infused in the Echo Arena community, you know, and so any game we go to that we want to expand to, we make sure that it is community first. And I think that's what sets us apart from any other esports organization. An esports organization is not going to come into you and go, hey, look, we want you guys to run it. We're going to give you a platform, run the show. It just doesn't happen. But we offer that as sort of our grassroots style of how we bring up esports, you know. And so, I mean, I guess a little inside scoop. I hate that it's another shooter because you said it, but Snapshot VR, definitely one that I have an eye on. It's basically paintball in VR. They can port professional paintball maps into the space, and you can play. You know, it's really something. It's completely different than Onward or any other shooter because you are playing paintball. It's very much like paintball. You're feathering the trigger. You're putting down lanes of fire. You're trying to dodge stuff. It looks rudimentary, but you know, it's stuff like that where we're trying to keep an eye on you know, new games that are being developed by, you know, indie developers, and then trying and finding out if those can be good esports scenes. One of the cool ideas that, I mean, came out that's kind of along those lines, Nathan, is one of our casters suggested, let's do a speedrun competition for Lone Echo. You know, let's cast Lone Echo speedrunning. And it's like, hey, yeah, they do that for GDC. Why can't we do it at the VRML? You know, so yeah, we are certainly looking into doing other things like that.
Do you also see arena-based VR come more to life, where it's like like a complete like warehouse scale where people fight each other? Of course, right now it's kind of difficult, but I mean, you
know, it's not. There's an EU company that is building arenas around I don't know what game it is. It's a game developed. I wish I could remember the name of the company off the top of my head. But they build these arenas that are then designed so that you are wearing a backpack PC and you're physically moving in the space, and people are then watching it. They have the screen in the center as a square. That I see as sort of like, that's like the pinnacle of the future of esports. You know, obviously that takes way more work. You know, you're gonna have to have the quests synchronizing with each other. Onward has to develop it to do that. You have to scale your maps accordingly. The logistics of it are obviously, you know, not there yet, but that's what I envision the future as.
I've seen this when I went to China last time. There was this one arcade who did a lot of esports because they were all about warehouse scale VR, and there was someone standing there with a microphone doing the commentary with, like, on the big screen, the players with this nice spectator cam, while also seeing the people running around in this, you know, actual space. So it is happening. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see more genres coming to VR, because usually when you think about esports VR, it's usually like shooters. But I think we're going to see, as you said, like golf. Like,
yeah. Yep.
That
sounds great,
That actually brings us nicely to a question we got from the chat. There was Edward Roy who asked us, I'm assuming for you, Alex, what do you see the future of consumer VR go to?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I feel like at really a fundamental level, the VR, like, we are tapped into a large portion of the community. You know, we have branding and stuff in Onward that shows, hey, go to the VRML. You know, people are seeing VRML when they load in Onward. They're seeing it when they load into Echo Arena. And so we, in the VRML, have seen a monumental growth from the Quest player base, like quadruple our player numbers. You know, and that was when the Quest 1 launched. Since then, it's been nonstop growth. Basically, the Quest kicked off a upward swing that we have not seen go down because Quest 2 has come out now. And so that has continued this momentum. And it's just wild to see that these two platforms seemingly dominate the player base. You know, like the Quest and Quest 2, that's where most of the players are, from what I can tell. You know, yes, I know the PC base is there. I'm not you know, saying that they're not. I'm not saying that they don't deserve to have their PC games, but it's just clear that this ease to access is what's the most important.
But you're totally right.
More players.
Yeah. You're totally right, because like, if you look at us, you know, as content creators, and also this podcast today, you know, most of the news and most of the content that we're all creating at the moment is Quest related, and it isn't because we don't love PC VR, because that's totally not the case. You know, we love PC VR, and that's how we all started in this space. But it's just like you can't deny the sheer amount of numbers and interest in the new headset compared to PC right now. You know, if we was to talk about a load of PC related news, I'm sure like our hardcore community would be happy, but you know, it's not going to appeal to the masses. And I think that's the same with going to be the same with VRML, right?
Absolutely. Go ahead, Roddy. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, it's just, you know, and now I get really excited too, because we were talking about it earlier, but the Quest 2 is really, in my opinion, the first competitive VR headset since the Rift S. Or not the Rift S, excuse me, since the Rift CV1 with 4 sensors. You know, they have not introduced a headset that I could comfortably go, yes, let's run a tournaments with these. You know, let's run a tournament with a Rift S. Let's run a tournament with a Quest. I couldn't in good conscience do that because they had their hiccups, you know, they had their tracking issues. I honestly think if we have good lighting in the proper space, we could do a Quest 2 tournament. You know what I mean? I think you could host a tournament around these devices because they are competitively viable now. And so you add that on top of, you know, the fact that we're already growing from the Quest player base. So it's an exciting time.
It's going to be great to watch people play with the Quest 2, not only from just your screen watching a live stream, but also when physical things can happen again.
That looks amazing.
We remember watching, you know, Onward at Connect. I've never seen VR esports before.
People laying on the floor.
I was like, wow, this is amazing. Yeah, exactly. But imagine if you have, or, you know, people standing on the spot with their Quest 2 having some space, because I mean, it's wireless and stuff, or even where it is an arena where we played, you know, Dead and Buried in VR. Imagine
then like
running
a holographic overlay on there.
Yeah, dude, like that would be amazing. Seriously.
The cost of a pop-up tournament would be pretty low. If you think about it, even back from the CV1 perspective, you're probably a 4 or 5x factor of cost. Now less. I mean, you're a fraction. You're probably 20% of the outlay, and that means you can just host a pop-up tournament, grab a community center somewhere, grab a couple of laptops, and boom, you've got a pop-up setup, and you could stream it. You could have commentators there for a couple of grand, and you're good.
Not right now.
Well, right now, of course. Yeah. Go on, Rowdy. What are the questions from the chat?
Yeah, we have a few more questions, actually. We had Fabster asking Alex, what are your thoughts on Solaris?
You know, so this kind of, I guess, feeds into a question that you asked me, Nathan. Are developers making their games to be played as an esport? And I don't know, you know, because I see games like Solaris, I see games like Pop 1 come out, and out the gate, we physically can't do esports. I without a spectate and without private lobbies, you can't run a competitive tournament. It's just not possible. And so without those two features, like, we can't do anything. You know, we can, but it's like I have to go back to the days of me cropping FPS views together and queuing at the same time on matchmaking, you know. And so I think like sometimes these key features are missed, but you do oftentimes see them get implemented later down the line, because at the same time, you don't want to split your player base. You don't want to have people get fractioned off into their own private lobbies. You want to encourage everyone to be in the same matchmaking queue. So I understand the logic behind it to some extent, but it does make it challenging for us at times to do esports scenes around it. So I think Solaris has potential, but there's no I don't think there's private lobbies in there yet for us to organize.
I think what you're touching on here, in general, games need to be shown better on screen, even if it's not an esport. I mean, if a consumer wants to play this game, you want to get them excited for it. But if it's getting shown in this funny field of view or whatever, it doesn't work.
I mean, let's get into the weeds of it, Nathan. I love it, man. Yeah, there is so much that has to go on when you're thinking esports, and I think one of the things that you'll look at two contrasting opinions very clearly. ESL likes to do FPS views because they are used to 2D shooters. They're used to having a very stable first-person view, a very clean reticle in the center, and that's how you really capture the action. Yeah. Doesn't really work so well in VR, you know, and so with VR, with what we try and do is focus on spectating from the outside. You know, we don't do a lot of FPS view, and we focus on capturing the player more from a third-person perspective. That lends itself to also showing off the VR, you know, movement, everything about VR that you want to see in a 2D, in the real space. You at least get a feel for it when you can see it from a third-person perspective. You can see the person crouching or reloading or, radioing onto their shoulder. You don't necessarily get that in an FPS view. And so, yeah, like we talk about framing, we talk about the rule of thirds and trying to get the camera to show the action appropriately. And there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, I think that you probably already answered the next question as well, because we had GamerChick13 asking, do people give Alex respect for how difficult his job is, or do people still see what he does as just a hobby?
A little bit of, I've been getting a lot of respect. I got called a procaster the other day for the stuff I've done in Pop 1, and it's the first time that I've been called a procaster.
That's awesome.
And it took me, I was like, yeah, I guess you could call me a pro. Sure. I think I've put in enough hours where I could say that. I could consider myself one, but I get it a lot from the OGs, from the guys that have been in Onward for 4 years, that have been around for a long time. They know who I am. They know I've used to play. I get the disrespect from the younger guys because they don't know that I can take them on 1v1 any moment. Okay. I'm still good at the game. Okay. I still got the fire. I still got the shots. Okay. Don't come and challenge me on my skill set. It's still there very much. All right. But it's hard. There's 15 things going on at once. If you're running an Onward, if you're running a VRML show, you're running the production, you're doing casting, you're running cams, you're talking to your co-caster, you're making sure you're on the right scene, you're checking onto the Twitch chat. Mike, I mean, you're running a show right now. It's a lot to do, So, who knows? I don't know who the producer is. It's very good. See, this is all part of the magic. You gotta hide it. That's what we try. That's what we do. That's what we do. We hide it. We make it look easy.
That's exactly it.
It's challenging.
That's it. Yeah.
That's right. It's funny you mentioned about games that that come out the gates as like VR esports ready. And it's interesting because I didn't even consider the fact that without private lobbies or spectator modes that you wouldn't even consider Pop 1 or Solaris. And I wonder, like, do you have any open dialogue with these developers to say, look, we'd love to cast your game, but we need these fundamental features before we can do that?
That is one of the key things. Again, you go back to community that the VRML focuses on. We go to developers first before we try and stand up an esports scene. We want to go to them and say, hey, can we get your blessing on this? Do you have anything that you would want to, maybe provide us some in-game, branding, something like that? Is there anything you can do to help us that we can then go and grow your scene more around? And so, we're very much in direct contact with developers. I've talked to some of the developers at Big Box for Pop 1 about some of the stuff they could do for a spectate feature. They're very much aware of the need to have that in if they want to do tournaments, and they very much do. Pop 1 has the vibe of, obviously the Battle Royale style. Let's do tournaments around it. And so, you need spectate, and you need it 2D. It's challenging to do. You can watch I don't know if you showed it, Zim, but the clip of me spectating Pop 1, it's janky a little bit. My headset is moving around. It's tough to capture first person views in a headset cleanly unless it's done externally, unless you have that additional little bit of tweaking in the capture that's making it smooth. It just looks rough, and so 2D spectate definitely makes that easier.
So I've got a couple questions just quickly. So what happened? What in your opinion, what happened to Space Junkies? Because that was a game that came out the gates that was kind of like very much VR esports like in mind. And we kind of touched on our thoughts on it. Was it the high price because it was like $40? I think it's straight out the gates, but it was a game that was almost perfect for VR esports, right? So what happened with that game? Why did it die?
It is very much, in my mind, been branded as a thing. This is, your game can get space junkied. You know, Space Junkies came out and had everything. It had a great UI, had a great menu, great tutorial, all of the functionality you'd need. The gameplay was good, but there wasn't a lot at the core of it. You know, when you think of a esport, there has to be more than just one or two mechanics. And I think that games like Space Junkies really excelled in those one or two mechanics, but they didn't have much more depth than that. Ultimately, when it came down to it, you're shooting your opponent in 0G, which is good, but if you really want to get down to something that's more competitive, there has to be a bit more there. Like when I think of Onward as a perfect example, I hate going back to it. I'm sure the Echo fans are mad at me for talking about Onward so much. But it's just a good example in my mind right now is that smoke grenades are in a pretty bad spot logistically wise. They don't act how they're supposed to, essentially. The devs have addressed this, and it's hopefully going to be fixed down the line. But we have, and the VRML have had to ban smoke grenades. That has completely changed how all of these teams are playing the game now. So we have taken one utility item away, and it has affected how all of these teams play. And so Onward has 10 of those. You know, you have flashbangs, you have different guns, you have silencers, you have smokes. There's all kinds of different utility that gets factored in that can end up changing how you play. And so if you don't have all those different tools and different sort of, you know, just more than a base mechanic, it doesn't necessarily, it's going to be tough to succeed, you know. And again, the high price probably something that's deterred away.
I do wonder if they would come out now on the Quest 2, how different it would be.
Oh, they would sell a lot
for $20.
Yeah.
For 20 or 25 bucks.
A fairly cheap price now.
Well, I think you'd have what Solaris is, essentially. Solaris, in my eyes, is a Space Junkies. If they can get private lobbies and they can maybe start an esports scene around it, you can really start to grow the community around that. But I mean, it looks great, it runs great, it has everything you need, but there's just I just feel like maybe there's one or two things missing. Maybe another mode needs to be in there, you know, maybe like one or two more guns. You know, it's just like I don't know what it needs, but I don't know. There's just a feeling I get sometimes with some of these games where they could have used more.
Sure.
So something I'm wondering too, like if you compare like the mainstream, like esports mainstream is huge, you know. In VR it's still a niche, like almost everything in VR. No offense, but the thing is, like, usually with esports, what you see when people sit in these arenas or you have small tournaments, there are a lot of sponsors. You know, sponsors are a big part of the whole like esports industry. So how do you reach out to brands that are used to working with people who play, let's say, pancake games, but then it's like, listen, VR is quite relevant, or look at the potential it has, and trying to kind of sell that idea to those companies and trying to get them on board? Because there are some big ones, I'm sure, like Corsair and others. Like, you want PC brands, you want maybe Monster Energy or whatever. There's so many, but I don't think they know that much about VR yet. So how do you,
it's a twofold really thing that needs to happen. Obviously, we need to keep having the growth that's happening right now. You know, I personally, I mean, hey, you're transitioning great into a bunch of stuff that I want to talk about. We have an Arena Charity Cup going on at Echo Arena in a couple hours from now, over on VRMasterLeague.com, twitch.tv/VRMasterLeague. One of our sponsors for that tournament is HyperX. They came in and said, look, we want to start to get into the VR space. We want to be a sponsor for some VR games. We want to start to be involved in here. And so, you know, I think, obviously I'm optimistic. I'm hoping that we can really lock them in as a full VRML sponsor down the line. You know, that would be the dream. Yeah. But I mean, it's starting now, you know. I think now, I mean, geez, we have over 300 registered teams for Echo Arena.
Wow.
We have gone from 300 players to 900 and onward. You know, we are rapidly growing our user base, and I think that draws the attention. That draws the eyes of some of these companies, and they go, "Oh wow, okay, this is starting to finally take off. It's starting to finally garner numbers that are reasonable." You know, we at some of our top events, we're pushing 200, 300 viewers live. You know, we're now in Oculus venues where we're doing Sunday and Saturday shows of Echo Arena and Onward, and you can go and watch the thing on the Quest. You know, we're appealing to a whole different user base in that venue space, and it piles on to our already, you know, the Twitch viewers, the YouTube viewers, the Facebook viewers, and it's starting, I guess is what I'm saying. We're starting to have those people come to us and go, hey, look, this is something that we want to attach ourselves to. We want to sponsor. Outside of that, we've acquired already a significant amount of sponsors. We've gone to ProTube and said, hey, we like your stuff. Can you give us prizes? We've gone to VR Cover. We've gone to Rebuff Reality. Some of these companies have come to us and said, we want to sponsor tournaments like Cyber Shoes did, or we did the VIP tournament, and so we get asked a little bit. And, admittedly, I don't do a lot of the reaching out. We have a good structure from top down in the VRML. I'm the casting coordinator. My expertise is casting and being involved in standing up the casting teams around our leagues. But we have guys that are good at marketing, dudes that, focusing on social media, all that stuff. And I think they're the ones that are trying to reach out on the side through emails saying, hey, look, we got this, we got that. Yeah.
Trying to sell the future of esports.
Yeah, and I mean, the dream really is if we find an angel investor, someone that really believes in our vision and the future of the VR, and from there we'd actually have some real true power funding to go and pay our volunteers and pay out bigger prize pools with bigger. I mean, you talked about it, right? With bigger prize pools, that's when you garner more eyes. That's when you garner eyes outside of the space,
Because right now there is no one doing something full time in the VR esports scene. It's not like players are, paying their rent of playing Onward or someone casting, and that's not. We're not there yet.
No, and we're starting to see organizations sprout up, though. We are starting to see, these groups that have managers and have coaches and are taking it very seriously because they recognize that this is the future. They know that we're growing and that we want to go down. We want to eventually get to that space where we're in an arena and we're hosting a VRML, event that's in a full, fully packed crowd. That's the future that we're trying to move to. But it takes time. And again, I go back to the key element of just it being adoption. We're seeing it now. It is finally starting, in my opinion. We have been positioning ourselves for 4 years as an esports company to be ready for growth, to be ready for a boom. And I think it's starting.
Actually, does that growth also bring with it, Alex, an element of risk then? Because if it grows too fast, don't you find yourselves in a position where you're understaffed? I mean, how do you end up growing the VRML kind of group as it stands today? Because you need those years, you need the experience, you need people you can trust, you can rely on, not only to run these events, but I feel like with such a bottom heavy pyramid coming in now, especially with Quest 2. I mean, the next 3 months are going to be killer for you guys, I imagine.
Yep.
But that actually brings with it also a requirement to scale up and fast. Yep. So you must be on the prowl for, where does somebody show their interest if they want to be a caster, if they want to get involved in this?
Yeah, so we do. It varies between org and Onward. You typically recruit casting during the off season because we like to train up our casters. We give, we teach them how to run all of the assets. We teach them what good camera tactics are. We teach them, stuff that you want to say in cast, what a co-caster does versus a caster, that sort of stuff. But we have a website. You can go to vrml.com. Usually there we have posted applications that you can register if you want to be a moderator, if you want to be a caster. And again, usually those only open up during off season. So I think again, mod apps for Echo Arena are going to be opening up soon. I could be wrong on that, but I think they are, since we're looking to start back up with season 3. So to your point though, we've been lucky. It's luck, and it's just good VR people, I don't know what it is, but the VR community seems to just be so on board. They recognize our passion right away. Most of the time when we have sit-down meetings with the communities, they say, oh, look, these guys have no malicious intent. They just want to grow the VR esports scene. And that really is all we want to do. We just want to give a platform to people to grow it. And when you offer that kind of generosity, you're typically going to find at least 2 or 3 people that'll give you a really good effort and really help you sort of build a foundation around a community to sort of build that esports scene. And so, with growth, we've been doing good. I mean, we've been tested already in that sense. We've gone from 30 Echo teams to 200 over the course of season 1 to 2. With that, we are now taking a longer break between 2 and 3. We're taking community feedback. We're processing that all through moderation. We're going to try and adjust the format accordingly for season 3. And it's a lot of work. I admit, but it's also passion. we love esports. The players love the game they play in. And so it's, you know, you give them something to grow from, and oftentimes the community really runs with it, and that's what makes us so unique.
I think there's a big chance VR esports, when it takes off, is going to take over the regular esports stuff, because it's more exciting to watch. I'm not saying that I do not enjoy people playing CS:GO next to each other, but with VR, it's, as Rowdy also said, we have mixed reality, we have all these tools. But if you throw that in there, it's like you're really watching the future.
Also with the physicality of it all. Absolutely,
yeah, true.
100%.
But there's so much that is just next level that you can't get when you're playing a pancake title.
Well, and I mean, to expand on that too, for the players, it's good. You don't get this level of camaraderie in a 2D game. You don't get that level of, hey, I'm going to give you a hand motion to move left, or I'm gonna give you a high five after a good round in the game. You just don't get that when you're playing the 2D game. And then when you end up meeting these people in real life, it's like you've already met them. It's like you've already been their friend in real life, because you've physically been interacting with them for years already, and so it's just, it's without a doubt where the future is. And I think that I know I've talked a lot, I said VRML probably too much already, but I truly believe in what we're doing on the VRML, and I think that will be the one that does bring VR into that mainstream. I think the model that we have is ripe for growth. If we can find people that believe in our vision and investors that want to help us grow it, I only see us going up. And I think the model we have scales. I really do. I think that we can scale to the growth that is going to come in from Quest 2. And, to that point, hey, if you want to be involved in the VRML, we'll have sign-ups open. Come join us. We want all the help we can get.
Well, I think that kind of leads me on to my final two questions. Really, is what VR games are hosted by the VRML at the moment, and how can people that are maybe really into VR, traditional gaming esports that maybe just bought a Quest 2, how can they get into the VRML and start playing competitively online with others? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, there are 5 active games right now. We have three actually, active, but we've done more than 3. But we have currently Echo Arena, Pavlov VR, and obviously Onward going as our 3 main titles for the VRML. Right. And so if you want to get in any of those, it's real easy. You just go to vrml.com. You'll see there that there's big pictures of the game that you want to play. You select that game, and then you register an account, and you can register for a team. We have all sorts of different ways you can play. If you want to get in initially, I recommend you join the Discord first, and then you join as a reservist. And what this does is it puts you into a reservist pool. And so you can be, if a team is in need of a player, they can ping the reservist and say, hey, we need a substitute for our match. Can anyone join? If you're available and you have the right rank, you can join that team and play for them and sort of get your feet wet in playing in the VRML. That's the initial step, really, is be a reservist. Then maybe you find a team you like playing for. Maybe that team likes you and they recruit you. Maybe you want to create your own team with a couple of guys that you've played with in the past. It's real easy to just register on the site for a team, make your team active, and when the season's live, you'll get scheduled with a weekly match that's based off of the MMR rating. It's like
ESL, but the VR version of it. That's basically what you're saying, with letters and everything in there.
I suppose, but the model's different. ESL structured their tournament format differently, and I think the way that we've structured it really caters to everybody as a player. Anybody can play in our league. You don't have to be a top 10 team to get involved. You can be at any skill level and play. Yep.
I think it's fascinating. Someone that doesn't really understand it very much. I think it's really insightful to have you on the show and talk about it, because I do think it's really interesting, and it's a niche within VR that I've been aware of for a long time, but I don't really understand the minutiae of it and how it all works. So I think it's been really interesting to have you talk about it. So thank you again for joining us, Alex. I'd love to talk to you about it more again in the future. So maybe we'll get you back on the show in a future episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. And just as a last bit of esports plug, again, head on over to the twitch.tv/VR Master League for the Charity Cup tournament that's going to be going on shortly.
And when does that start? In the next couple of hours?
1 p.m. Pacific Standard.
Awesome. Thank you very much again.